One of the most important tools when developing is the terminal. In this video, you'll learn how it is specifically used on web development. Also, some basic commands you'll find yourself using very often, plus some basic concepts of what are shells, CLIs, Node.js and NPM. Of course, by going step by step with me over the most basic functionality you will need to start your development projects right away. What's up guys, today we are going to be talking about the terminal. Probably if you come from a Windows background you know it as the command prompt. Anyways, the terminal is really useful for every developer, as we can command our computer to do various tasks without using any GUI or interface, with which we can manipulate via peripheral devices. In other words, in this case, the mouse or the keyboard. And this in the end make our work much more productive and efficient. Plus, as you'll realize in the future, there are many features that are not available through GUIs. But let's stop right there and let's cut to the chase. Okay, so there are a few concepts that we need to understand first, like for example, what is the terminal, what are shells, what is a CLI. So this is important because these are all related. So let's start with what is a terminal. Well, a terminal is a text input and output environment, which you can think of as a graphical user interface or GUI where you can enter some commands. Okay, now let's go with what are shells. Shells are programs that run on your terminal, and according to IBM, shells is the outermost layer of the operating system. Shells incorporate a programming language to control processes and files, as well as to start and control other programs. In other words, shells are programs that allow you to communicate with the operating system through a CLI. And this is done by entering some commands on the shell that then your operating system interprets. And this is all great, but what is actually a CLI? Well, according to the website of W3School, a CLI is a command line program that accepts text input to execute operating system functions, and CLI stands for Command Line Interface or Command Line Input or Command Line Interpreter. In other words, the CLI normally constitute a set of programs that are designed to communicate with your operating system. There are many types of CLIs that you will encounter, like for example npm and git, which have their own commands to execute certain tasks. Think of it like each of these technologies have their own specific language and you need to learn it in order to write it and execute it. Now, what type of shells can you use? Well, there are many of them, but some of the popular ones are bash, zsh and PowerShell. I guess at this point you will still continue asking yourself, but what are the terminals for? Well, glad you asked. Normally we use terminals to move from directories in our computer, create folders, check the content on certain directories, install libraries for our projects as well, which by the way makes our development process much more faster. Also for controlled versioning our code, so we can actually track the changes in our code. And as you might have probably guessed, for much more stuff. Now let's see what are some of the basic commands used in web development. So for that one, let's go actually into our computer. Okay guys, so I'm going to be mentioning some of the commands I use the most when developing, and these commands are for shells based on Linux. So for example, for shells like bash or zsh. If you're using other terminals like on Windows, a command prompt or PowerShell, something different. On Windows, I'm going to be leaving here the equivalent commands on Windows, so for you to follow along with me as well. Okay guys, so let's start with it. If you are on Mac, look for the terminal. If you are on Windows, maybe open the command prompt or the PowerShell. So right now I am on Mac, so I'm gonna be looking for the terminal. So if we come here to the launchpad and we type terminal, we'll see it here and we can open it. If we open this a little bit more, let's put it here for example, and let's do a zoom in so you can read very well there. Let's just resize it a bit. Okay, so we are here on the terminal, and one of the first command I wanted to show you was the cd command. And this command is very powerful, very simple, very powerful, but allows you to change from directories when you are on your terminal. Like for example, right now we just open our terminal, we are in our root directory, and if we want to change to another folder, we would do cd, and for example we can do cd desktop. By the way, if you want to autocomplete the folder that you are typing, like for example you know that in your root directory you have the desktop and you want to autocomplete it, you start typing the name, and if you click tab it's gonna autocomplete it as long as the first word you add don't have any other folder name just similarly. For example, if we just do D, this could be documents, this could be desktop, and this could be downloads, and this is because I have 3 folders starting with D on my root directory. So this is just a kind of shortcut. It really helps you to be efficient, to be faster when you're typing commands on your terminal. So actually, let's do a bit more of zooming. And okay, let's change then. We do cd and then desktop, and there we are. We are on our directory desktop on the terminal. Another command that is very useful is ls, and what this allows you to do is to check all the documents you have in your current directory. So right now we are stepped into the desktop folder. So if we want to see what is inside the desktop folder, we do ls, and we'll check that there is the folders, images, and project terminal folder. And this is true because, as you can see it here, this is what we have on our desktop. So very simple, powerful, but you can change directory fast and see what is inside of them without even really need to move in through the interface to other directories. Like for example, if we want to see what is in documents, we will have to go to our interface, open maybe Finder if we are on Mac, and see what is on documents, for example, here, right? So we have to go, click here, click there, and open something. If we don't want to do that, we can just simply do it on terminal by navigating to it. So let's do that example, but before that, there's another thing you can do. If you want to move backward on your directory, what you could do is type cd and 2 dots, and what this means is that it's gonna go back to the root directory because we are on desktop, so it goes one step backwards, right? So there we are on the root directory now. And if we want to check what is in the root directory, we do just simply ls, and there we are. We have applications, documents, library, pictures, blah blah blah, many other things. If we want to go to the documents folder, what we do is cd and documents, right? Hit enter, and there we are in documents. We want to see what is inside the documents, we do ls, and there we are. That's what we have inside the documents. Okay, so now let's try creating a folder just with our terminal without doing anything with our mouse or mousepad. We can do this just by commands. So if we are in the documents, for example, I want to create a folder on my desktop, what we can do is just let's simply change back to our root directory, right? And then we can change to the desktop where we were before. Desktop folder, there we are. Just to see that this is true, let's do ls, and yes, other images and project terminal, which is what I have here. So what I can do here is type mkdir, and I can actually type the name of the folder I want to create. This is actually auto displaying this test here because it's a command I executed previously. This is because of a feature I have installed here, but don't worry about it, you don't need it right now. Let's actually create our folder now. So let's call it my YouTube video, for example, just like that, and let's create it. And what happened? We created our folder here, my YouTube video, just simply by typing some commands there. Okay, so the next command is the touch command, and with this what we can do is to create our files. For example, let's actually try to create a file inside the my YouTube video, the folder we just created. So for that we will have to jump inside the YouTube videos folder. So let's do, as you may already know, cd my YouTube. So I know this is the only name or the only folder with this name in my desktop. I can do just with my tab, hit it, and it auto completes, and then click enter, and there we are. So we'll see if we do ls, it's just empty, it's not displaying anything. So what we want to do here is to create our file. So for this, just type touch and add a file with some name that you want to. For example, let's do development. So development that let's say this is gonna be txt, which is just a text file. And there we are, we have created it. So how do we actually verify that this file is in there? As we are here inside this directory, we just do ls, and here it is. Here is the file development.txt. Is amazing how this works. So if we come inside of this file by the GUI with Finder, we'll see that we have our file there. This is without touching anything graphic. Okay, great. So now the next command we want to use is rm. With this command, what we can do is to remove files or directories. So let's actually start with it and remove a file. So if we are here inside my YouTube video folder, what we could do is remove this file we just created, which is development.txt. For this, let's do remove, which is rm, and we can do we can type the name of the file. If we don't want to type it all in, you know what to do, just autocomplete with your tab and then hit enter, and you'll see if we now navigate inside this my YouTube video, we try to print what is inside, you'll see that there's nothing inside. If you want to check it through the GUI, then come here to your desktop and check inside. You see the file is not there anymore. Okay, so now if we want to remove a folder, what we need to do is to use the same command rm, but we'll need to add a flag, which in this case is gonna be -r, and this will remove the directory itself. So we can actually try it out right now. Let's go. So let's navigate to our desktop again. So cd 2 dots, and there we are, our desktop. And from here, let's try to remove my YouTube video. So for this, let's do rm space -r and the name of the folder, which in this case is my YouTube video. And if we do this, we'll see that it will just disappear. And there we are. As you can see, we cannot see the folder here anymore, the GUI. And if we actually do ls here, there's no folder. So that's amazing. Okay, so now that we have removed our folder, what we can do is just clean our terminal. Let's say that we have messed up too much with the terminal. There's too much information there that doesn't let us concentrate on what we want. And for this, we use the command clear. There it is. We have cleaned our terminal. There's nothing else in there. Okay, so this is all great, but actually how would this work on your projects? For example, if you are on your VSCode, let's actually minimize this or close it however you want, and let's open a project on VSCode. So for this, you can just, if you have VSCode installed, if you haven't VSCode installed, make sure to check my video, code editors, I published last week, where I actually talked about code editors, which code editors you can use and how you can use Visual Studio Code precisely. So check it out, it's very nice. So let's go here and let's drag this project terminal into our VSCode. Again, I have created this folder. This is just an empty folder. You can just do the same, just create a new folder, call it whatever you want here in your desktop, or maybe documents, whatever you want in your system, and yeah, just add a name to it. In this case, I'm just gonna remove it to bin, and I'm gonna keep my project terminal. So here in my project terminal, so we know that our VS Code has an integrated terminal. For this, you can come here and click on new terminal, and this is going to create a new terminal for me. And actually, this terminal is a ZSH terminal. I have many other different ones here. I have a bash, I have set SSH, so I can just use whichever I want. Okay, so we are here in our terminal, and one thing we can do is to create a new folder. Let's say that in this folder we want to store our CSS files. So for this we'll do mkdir, excuse me, and let's call it just simply CSS. So this has created the CSS folder. Let's say that we want to create a file inside that CSS. What we will need to do is, there are many ways to do it. Actually, there are so many other shortcuts, but I'm just showing you what is the simplest one. So what we can do is just cd into our CSS. Here we are, and let's create a file with the command I just previously teach you, which is touch, and let's call it index.css. There we are. So if we come back here, we'll see that we have the file we have just created. It's amazing. So yeah, we can come back to the root directory of the terminal, which is project terminal, and maybe create an HTML file. So for this, let's do touch index.html, HTML, and there we are, index.html file. So this is one of the ways we use the terminal when we are developing. We can create our files, we can create our directories, whichever is just easier for you. You have also in your VS Code a way to do it via the GUI, which is clicking here, creating a new folder. If you want to, for example, let's create a folder for our JavaScript files. So let's actually create it here in the root, and let's say JS only, and this is gonna create my JS file, and we can create our new file here, index.js. Well, you get the gist of it. That's basically what you need to know about these basic commands. Now, as a web developer, probably you'll be using JavaScript. So something you use all the time are npm commands. And to understand what npm is, you need to understand what Node.js is. According to Node.js website, Node.js is a JavaScript runtime built on Cron's V8 JavaScript engine. In other words, Node.js is JavaScript running on your operating system. JavaScript, normally as we know it, runs on the browser. But installing Node.js in our machines makes actually our computer to understand JavaScript code, and boom, there we are. We can use our JavaScript powers in both environments, the browser and our operating system. Isn't it that awesome? Now, Node comes with its own CLI, which is called NPM, and this stands for Node Package Manager. You'll find yourself using this all the time if you are coding with JavaScript and JavaScript related frameworks. With NPM, you can install, remove, update libraries in your project. And guess what? Well, you can do much more than that with NPM as well. So I actually wanted to show you one of the most basic commands I find myself using with NPM. So for that, let's jump into our computer. Okay, now guys, something you will need to do in order to follow along here with me is to install Node.js on your machine. So go to your browser, search for Node.js, and search for Node.js, and then come here and download the version of Node.js you need for your machine. I have a Mac, so this is going to download the Mac version. If you have a Windows, then go ahead and download the Windows version. So once you have downloaded this and installed it, you can follow what I'm going to do right now. I'm not going to download it and install it because I already have it. So once you have installed it, a way to check if you have installed it is to come to your terminal. So let's open our terminal again. So we have it here, terminal, and let's actually do node -v, and this is going to show the version of Node we have installed in our machines. For me, I have a 12.2. This is kind of an old version right now, but it's okay, it works. Just do it. Probably if you install it right now, you have this one, the 16.15. This is the most recommended one, so I would advise you to download actually this one and not this one, which has the latest features. So one of the first commands I want to show you is npm install. So let's actually go to our VS Code. This is where we were before in the last tutorial. So we created a CSS folder, a JavaScript folder. In this JavaScript folder we have a file index.js. So this is basically a JavaScript file, and what we are going to do here is to basically use some npm commands. As I said, one of the first commands you would use is npm install, but for this you would actually need to do something else before, and that is create a package.json on your project. So if you have your project here on VS Code, one thing you can do, go ahead and go to your integrated terminal and use the next npm command, which is npm init, and add a flag -y. And what this is going to do is going to create a package.json file where all our dependencies on JavaScript are going to be. Again, don't worry about this right now. What really interests us here is to see how these npm commands work, and to get to know some of the basic ones. One thing that you need to make sure is that you're actually on your root directory on your terminal. So for example, here it should display the part where we are. So here the last directory it displays is project terminal. So make sure that when you open your project it is there. And once you are in your root directory, which is what we see here, you can then run this command, which is npm init -y, and this again is going to create this package.json file. It is very important that you do it here at the root directory of your project, because it's where your dependencies are going to be installed, and all of your other files will rely on this path later on. But don't worry about it, you don't really need to go further on this tutorial, rather than just follow along with me with the npm commands I'm going to be teaching you guys. So once we have created that package.json file, we can go over there and we'll have some JSON file generated here with some information that we don't need to know right now. This is something just for you to know that exists. And one thing that we normally do with npm is to install dependencies. So any dependencies that your project will need, for example, an external library that's gonna make your code easier for you to develop something faster, or certain utilities that help you with your code basically. For this you will need to install these libraries with an npm command, and that's npm install. So normally you just type npm install and you then add the name of your package. Right now we don't know what we are going to install, so one thing I would suggest is to go ahead and install a package named Lodash. And for this we'll need to go and maybe search for the package itself, make sure that we have the name of this package correctly. So if we go to Lodash, we search for this, we'll see here is my Lodash website, and obviously we'll have some documentation here about the package, and it also tells you how to install this package, this external library. So it tells you go ahead and install your package in this way. You have this other way, which is to install your package generally within your machine with this -g flag, but let's not do that. Let's actually install this package just in our project, so it doesn't affect any other project in our machines. So let's go ahead and do a copy here and come back to our VS Code, and in the terminal we're gonna paste that and we'll see what will happen. Okay, so what happened is that Lodash was installed, and automatically this is created on your package.json, creates a dependencies kind of object within your JSON, and it tells you, okay, we have installed Lodash with this version number. Again, don't worry about it, this is just about installing a library, so we did it, so congratulations on that one. And let's go back to our index, and see what we can do actually with this library, because we have installed it. So this is just like a little exercise we're gonna do with JavaScript. I reckon that you guys, probably if you're watching this video, you don't know anything about JavaScript. Again, don't worry about it, just follow along, and later on you'll see like how this makes sense. So to use this library we have just installed, we just need to import it, and for that one I already have some code that I thought about we could create it. So for this, let's actually import the library. So we say cons lodash, and we type here require, we put here the name of the package. Normally, as VSCode is smart enough, it will suggest you, oh look, you have one library installed, the name of the library is lodash, so let's go for it. And let's actually use one of the features of this library. And if you want to know what features this library have, just come here to lodash and let's check the documentation. If we come here, the documentation, we can check all the different kind of features of functionalities this library comes with. And if we come to, I don't know, let's use one of the features that probably is going to be useful, like for example this join feature. What it does is it accepts two arguments here, one array, and then the kind of string type you want to add there. Like for example, they put this tilde, you could put something else if you want. Basically what it's going to do is going to convert this array into a string, and each value in that array is going to be separated by the string you added here. So let's actually copy this example, bring it to our code. Let's actually save it in some kind of variable. Let's call it cons, I don't know, result. And here let's replace this with lodash. So lodash join this, do what change it to use this kind of string between each of these values, as you saw in the example in the page. So let's actually console log this, and let's say okay, print this result. So another reason why we're doing this, we have Node installed. We already know that we can actually run Node in our machines, we can run JavaScript code in our machines. So this is amazing, because what we can do now is if we come to the terminal and we change back to cd.js, right? cd.js is just to change directory, as you saw in the previous video where I talked about some commands for your terminal, and JS is the folder. So we have just changed our directory to be looking at project terminal /js, and here what we can do is we can run JavaScript code, right? So we are in this folder that has a JavaScript file which is index.js. So for this, what we can do to run commands with Node, we just type Node first, and then we type the name of the file, in this case index.js. And if we do this, we'll see the result in the console of what we have done on line 3 on our VS Code. So let's see, this is what it printed. So we have ABC with this tilde. If we change now this to, I don't know, let's add just a dot, and let's save it. So Command S here, and let's run this back again, and as we can see, it is ABC. So let's actually run it again. ABC is printed with a dot separating them. So yeah, this is pretty cool. We have used a few npm commands. We have even run a node commander, which is amazing. And another thing I forgot to tell you guys, so once you install a package, then you have this node modules folder created in your project, and basically what this have inside is all the dependencies this lodash library have installed within it. But don't worry about it, you really don't need to know about this right now, but for you to be aware that this is going to be created automatically, so don't get scared about it. So once we have this package installed, one thing that maybe we want to do is to just remove this package, just to uninstall it from our dependencies. And how do we do that? So just to do that, go back to your root directory, which is in this case project terminal, because we are right now in the JS directory. And here we can do npm uninstall Lodash. Lodash is the name, so you have to put npm uninstall and the name of the package you want to uninstall. And if we head back to package.json and we hit enter here, we'll see some magic happens, and yes, the package is not there anymore. It's uninstalled from our dependencies, and we don't even have the no modules because we don't have any other dependency in our project. So what will happen if we run this right now? Well, probably it would fail if I don't have Lodash installed in my machine. Generally, I don't know if this is the case. Let's actually run this. Well, basically we have to go back to JS and let's run the file. Oh, so we got an error, so it means cannot find Lodash because we have removed it, we have uninstalled it. So yeah guys, that's actually some of the npm commands I wanted to show you. These commands are pretty basic, but really this is something you would use in your everyday, especially if you are a JavaScript developer. They are pretty simple. You would remember them later on when you work with JavaScript because you're gonna be using them all the time. So yeah, I hope you have learned something here and that you have enjoyed. Okay, as you have seen, this is so much information and this is just the basic stuff, but super useful as you'll find yourself using this all the time. If you still want to learn more, make sure to check out my intro to web development videos. You'll find the links here. If you have enjoyed this video, of course, like, subscribe, leave me a comment. If you have any question, just leave me a comment there. I will be really happy to reply to you. So thanks very much for watching this video and see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.